Właśnie taka rozliczenie to budować się jeszcze telewizji. W zeszłym roku jak chodziliśmy tutaj na tenis, to była dziura w ziemi jedna wielka. No tutaj. To jest ten budynek, tam są karty tenisowe. Tam też byłem za pierwszym razem.
Tutaj na pływanie i jeszcze w jedną stronę miałeś taką
No to jeszcze się z nimi budują. Ale nawet nie pracują. Ładnie jest. Co to jest za tym dużo?
Stick this up somewhere. I think I have to use the sticky stuff from behind there. Maybe one here. Just one here. Yeah, exactly. Good morning. Congratulations for making it on time. I need to start the event with positivity. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. English Polish accent. Aha.
Czy ja mogę to jeszcze
Tak, oczywiście możesz. Tylko powiedz mi, kto jak imię nazwisko.
Moja stolica.
To jest...
Dopiero niedawno mnie pan dołączył do grupy. Więc ja to zrobię dzisiaj.
Dobra, okej. I to jest twoja grupa, to jest twoja grupa. Okej, dobra. Okay, good morning everyone. Good morning everyone. Good morning. Okay, so first things first, the map. Help me, I need to take registration. So you are Mateusz Wilk. Mateusz Wilk. Okay. And what am I doing? I'm mapping. Yeah, I'm mapping. Well done. I'll try and do it well today. Mateusz, and you are Eva. Yeah, I'm beginning to remember. You wait. By the end of this course, everyone will be remembered. Eva Olszowska. Right? Next to you, Ilona. Smolieniogo. Okay. And behind you?
Mateusz.
The guy who swapped group.
Yes.
So you're very confusing. Mateusz. Okay, so I should be ticking off Mateusz. Patricia, sorry, you went twice, you see? You see, once I've got the map made, Patricia, and Nicola. Okay. Nicola. Alicia. Alicia, who hasn't done the video yet.
Yes, that's me.
Okay. Pablo.
Dana.
Dana. And next one? Karina. Okay, good morning everyone. So, how are we today? Are we in positive mood, negative mood, medium? Medium, okay. Today we have an exciting day because this question, if you learn the answer to this question, you're going to be much more successful than everyone else you know, okay? What do you think this question, what is the question? How do you organize things so people do their job well and get things done properly? So what's the answer to this question? This is a big question. It's an important, is it an important question?
Yes.
Okay. It's a very important question. And do you know the first time I was asked this question?
When you started your first business?
No, I was asked this question about 2 months ago by my son, who came home from a team meeting. He was organising a project at school, and he was very frustrated. He said, "Dad, how do you..." And then he just asked me this question, and I thought it was quite interesting because no one's ever asked me that question before. And actually, this is the most important question in human organisation. So, what would... Hi, good morning. I liked your video. I watched your video yesterday, and I liked it. It's okay. I forgive you for being late. So you're Nguyen Tu? Okay. What we're doing is we're discussing this question today, okay? And the question is really about a well or badly managed organisation. So what I'm going to do is there are 2 sheets here. Sorry, one sheet says describe a badly managed organisation, okay? And the other is describe a well-managed organisation. We're going to start working individually, okay? And I want you to write your... I hope I've got some bad ones. It's more fun describing a badly managed organisation. It's 1 each. I want you to write your names on these, okay? Because you're going to photograph your work, and it's going to be published on the Facebook group, okay? So write lively, okay? Otherwise it'll be embarrassing for you, okay? And I'm going to give you about, once everyone's got their sheet, I'm going to give you about, you get one with a red, okay? You're lucky, because I decided not to trust the WSE printers as I did it at home, just in case, but next time. So just write your name, and you can do it in bullet points. You don't have to write sentences. You can write sentences, but remember, you only have half a sheet of paper. So has everyone got a piece of paper? Okay. Have you got well or badly?
Well.
Okay, so you're going to get a badly. So you can't copy.
So I can understand that it's about like putting the characteristic, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah. I mean, if you just imagine, I think you can think of a school, think of a restaurant, think of a university, think of anything, and just like bullet points, like what's the atmosphere, what's going to be going on, like if you imagine just walking into an organisation that's like beautifully run or terribly run, what are you going to notice? And think of your 5 senses. What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Or maybe what it's for. And I'm going to give you like 3 minutes, okay? And then we're going to work in teams. And don't forget to write your names on these documents as well. Okay. You can be first name only if you like. Doesn't have to be first and second name. So. Am I right in thinking Kamila Ogorik's not here? And Renata Pikash?
She's in another group, I think.
Oh, she may have changed groups, yes.
Yeah.
And Stash, Dominika Stash also.
Yes, she also.
Okay, cool. Not cool, but understood. Okay. So how many people have doing good, well-managed organisation? Can you put your hand up if you're doing a well-managed organisation? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I need of those 5, I need a volunteer. A volunteer. Okay, so Karina, can you go to the good sheet? Okay, and I want you to just write up on this board. So you're going to be not just your own things, but I want you to collect information from all the others just by calling out. So can the good people start just write up here? I want to have it so everyone can see. So people are going to call out from their lists different things. So you just stand by the board and listen. Okay. Okay. So who wants to go first? Like characteristics of a good organisation from the good people.
Well organized.
Well organised. Okay, what else? What else? From the good people. Come on, we need to do this quickly. We don't want to.
Treat everyone differently.
Okay, okay, so maybe individual treatment. I don't know. What else? Who are the goods? Hands up again. Nicola, you're being quiet. What else?
We have to have common goals as a team.
Common goals, clear goals. Okay, common goals. Okay. What else?
Strong team.
Strong.
It's like a supportive, cooperative with each other, with a positive atmosphere and creativity and opportunity to developing skills.
Maybe being friendly.
Yeah.
Being friendly, common goals. Okay, who else had good? Alice, did you have good or bad?
Good.
Okay, what have you got?
I have motivation,
Motivation, okay. What else?
Respect.
positive attitude,
Positive attitude, okay, what else?
Time management.
and respect.
Okay, positive attitude, respect, common goals, time management, okay, what else?
One-to-one meetings.
What?
One-to-one meetings.
One-on-one meetings, did you know that 2 weeks ago or did you learn that from my course?
I learned it from your course.
Great, okay, you get a bonus point. Okay, in the evaluation, okay, remember one-on-ones. Why you laugh? Have you got a good or bad organisation? You've got bad
I
organisation.
had
Okay, who else had good? Okay, what have you got on your list?
I've got a clear hierarchy of the people.
Hierarchy, interesting. Okay, hierarchy.
Everyone knows what to do and what's the scope of their work.
Okay, so everyone knows what to do, what the scope of their work is. Okay, hierarchy. Okay, maybe job descriptions. Maybe job descriptions, clear job descriptions or responsibilities.
Responsibilities, yes.
Clear responsibilities.
And effective communication between the people.
Effective communication, very good. Okay, from the people who are doing bad, thank you very much. Can we have a round of applause for Karina for volunteering? And what we're going to do, and remember, I want you each to photograph, the people who have the good sheets, I want you to photograph your sheets and upload it to the Facebook group. What?
No, I don't know.
If we're having a discussion, let's have it as a group.
No, she said.
because you said the photographs.
Yeah.
Sheets. Yeah.
Yeah, so take your smartphone.
Yeah, okay, so she told me this, but I didn't understand her.
Okay.
Then you
Okay,
said-
so okay, so you know how on phones there's this function called camera?
What?
On your phone there's a function called camera,
Yeah.
and then if you click share, right? Okay, you know about this.
Yeah,
Okay, okay, because okay, so so we're going to collect all these together on the okay. So is there anything missing here? Do you think on the good? Like okay, so let's imagine you walk into an organisation. You're job hunting in about 5 years' time. And you're just waiting in the reception. What might be signs that it's well organised? Just sort of like starting. Imagine there's no sound, just what you can see. What might be a sign that it's well organised?
People look happy.
Okay, people look happy. Okay, that's the kind of recruitment brochure. If you try to get a job, has anyone here worked for Capgemini? Okay, have you heard of Capgemini?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have a Capgemini recruitment photo, everyone looks happy. Okay.
That photo is a bit different than when you walk into the.
Okay, but no, but they have a process. They have a process. So that if they see a candidate, they have to look happy. There's a look happy program. I don't want to knock Capgemini specifically. So people look happy. What else might you notice if it's a well-run organisation? What might be things that you notice?
Being
Sorry, go ahead.
okay. Being honest, but not too much.
Okay, well, actually you can only what you see with your eyes. Okay, you don't. I don't know what you can see that symbolises
Everyone
honest.
has its own place.
Everyone. Okay, you're in the reception area, so I guess the receptionist is in his place or her place, right? Okay. What else?
The whole place looks good. Like.
What do you mean by looks good? You're right, but just try and unpick what looks good means.
It's not like an old house with a ruined building.
Okay, so you're in the
It's
reception.
like
You're just in the reception area. And okay. So suppose there's a picture on the wall and it's just like this. Okay, it's crooked, right? That there might be lots of seriously, or the picture on the wall might be crooked. It might have cracked glass. What else might be wrong with it? Just imagine there's a picture on the wall. What else might be wrong with picture apart from? Just imagine. Okay, what would be a terrible picture?
Yeah, but the glass is broken, right?
Oh yeah. Okay, so the glass is broken.
Glass.
What?
It's covered in blood.
Okay, it's covered. Okay, it's dirty. I was going to say it's dirty. Like it could like not be dusty. It could be not clean. Like literally, it could have dust on top. And I've visited the company.
It's about aesthetic stuff, I
E-
suppose.
Everything is like there are no right. This is a workshop. Remember, this isn't like teaching you an exam where at the end of the course I give you a test and you pass or fail. Like I'm trying to teach you guys to think, okay? Or to make. You can. I hope you. Okay, sorry, that sounds incredibly offensive. Apologies. I'm not trying to teach you to think. I mean, because I guess you knew already, otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? What I mean is that I'm trying to give you a different ways of thinking about business and organisation. So I agree. So the picture is crooked. It's broken glass. And it's, I was going to say dirty or dusty, but it could be covered with blood stains, would be like even worse. And I did once visit a company in Germany, which seemed like the set of a horror movie. I mean, it was like we had to drive down a road in a forest, and when we got there, the reception area was dark, and everything was covered with dust. Like, and apparently it turned out the company had nearly failed some years before, and there was just one little room at the back where there were some people, but it was really like a ghost town. It was so okay, and that gives you an idea of what. So, what else might be wrong with a picture? Like, if you might, think about something you find really offensive. What might be like a picture that would like put you off doing business, or would send a negative signal?
Wrong dress code.
Wrong dress code. Okay, like let's say it could be very sexist, for example. Like sometimes if you go into like a service department or an IT department in an old-fashioned company, like there are a lot of guys and there's some kind of sexist calendar up on the wall, for example. Now, if you were applying for a job and you saw that, what would you think, right? It would just like immediately, like even little things, and it also, what would it tell you about the management if there was a sexist calendar in the reception area? What would it tell you about the management?
That they don't care or they approve.
Either they don't care, or they approve, or they're stupid, right? right. Or maybe all three. They don't care and they're stupid. Okay. What else? Let's keep going with like signs of a well-run reception. We've immediately switched to bad. In a moment, we'll go to the bad list because very often, like if you see anything in business, you think that's really great. Think what the opposite is. If you see something that's really terrible, think what the opposite is. What else might be? Imagine going into a restaurant. This would be quite a good, or a bar that's badly run. What might be your signs or well run? What would you see in a well run restaurant?
Smell.
The smell, right? Okay, it smells terrible. Right, you walk in and a bad smell. Like, okay, what else? I said you can't hear anything yet, but you just got your eyes and your nose.
Maybe the people look calm, like they know what they're doing and they're not running around.
Yeah,
frantically.
exactly. Like there's this like a sense of order, right? And there's in warehousing and logistics, there's an expression: everything has a place, everything in its place. Okay, and you know if you, so like if it's tidy, actually untidiness is probably a proxy for bad organisation. Okay, let's move to the bad list. Who can I have a volunteer for the badly run organisation? If I don't get a volunteer, I'm going to pick on someone, and you get extra credit. I don't know what the credit is going to be, but there will be extra credit for the people who volunteer. So far, only Karina has got extra credit. I don't know what. There will be something. We may have a social engagement. If there's a social engagement, the volunteers will get something extra at the social art class party. Let me see who.
You convinced.
Eva.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have a round of applause for Eva? Eva is easily bribed. Okay. So. Who was? Put your hand up if you had to list features of a bad organisation. Okay. Ilona, can you read out your list?
Hidden information from team.
Hidden.
Hidden.
Okay, so it's not transparent. Okay, okay. Secrets, gossip. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Give no instructions.
Okay, no clear instructions. What else?
Unfair treatment of one person or group in a better way than another.
Okay, so unfairness. Yeah. Okay, so it's unfair. It's untransparent and lack of clarity in instructions. Which interestingly is the opposite of Matthias. Matthias was saying, you know, everyone has clear job descriptions or clear responsibilities. What else on your list?
Blaming others.
Blaming others. Okay, yeah, it's not my fault. Yes. What else?
Skip performance reviews.
Skipping performance reviews. Okay, or maybe no performance reviews. Sometimes it can be no performance. Okay, so it's a lot to do with the way people are managed. Okay, who else had a list of bad things? Yes, done.
Too much controlled atmosphere for every worker.
Too much control. Okay. What else?
When workers don't know what they should do in particular to reach the aim.
Sorry, can you say that again?
In my mind, a badly managed organization, it is when workers don't know what they should do in particular.
Okay. They don't. Okay, people don't know what to do.
So no particular aim, motivation, and instructions what they should to do.
No goals, no instructions, and no motivation. Okay. Who will? Thank you, Dana. Pavel.
Disorganization.
Disorganization. Okay. That's kind of like what's a badly organized organization is disorganized. It's kind of like in the word, right? Maybe you should explain what you mean.
Maybe frustration from the work process.
No frustration in the work process.
From the work process.
Okay. Okay, not a clear work process.
Maybe disappointment.
Okay, people are disappointed. Yeah, okay, that's like, so a lot of it is to do with psychology. Yes, the people are not happy, they're disappointed. Anything else on your list?
Negative atmosphere, work atmosphere.
Negative atmosphere, what does that mean?
I mean, like, people feel like they're not satisfied with their work or with their goals or how they're treated.
Okay, so people are badly treated, they're not satisfied with their work and their goals. Okay, who else had a bad sheet? Okay, Patrizia.
Lack of a good conversation.
Lack of conversation, so maybe communication, conversation, yeah, what else?
Badly distributed tasks.
Badly distributed tasks, okay.
Incorrectly selected people in their positions.
Okay.
And negative atmosphere, like Pablo.
Okay, incorrectly selected people. Yes, good. Is there anything that anyone has on their sheets that they haven't seen? Like on the good side, we've got well-organised, people treated as individuals, common goals, being friendly, motivated, positive, something.
Attitude and respect.
Positive attitude and respect, one-on-ones, clear hierarchy and job descriptions and responsibilities. Is there anything missing here?
Maybe if there are customers, the customers are treated badly or ignored.
Customers are treated badly or ignored on the... Oh yeah, I'm glad someone has mentioned the word customers. So far, have you noticed that no one's mentioned clients, okay? Or beneficiaries. In the university, you could say you guys are the clients. Or the beneficiaries. Like most organisations have a purpose. Obviously, to some people say no clear purpose, but it's really important to, if we're thinking about it badly, like you have like an internal conversation and an external conversation. My opening question when you walk into a company or an organisation is what it looks like from the outside. And like, can anyone think of an organisation where everyone who works there is extremely happy, but the beneficiaries, the customers, the people who the organisation is for are not happy. Have you ever come across this concept? Like the people who work there are really happy and the customers are really unhappy.
Yes, yesterday at KFC.
Yesterday, okay, right. Yeah, I mean, this is like...
It's really fun there, but I was like not existent.
Yeah, I mean, this is, so this is a really important thing. It's like, sometimes in a government ministry, you're lining up outside, you have a feeling the guys in the room or the women in the room are quite happy. They're quite happy with the queue. It kind of suits them. It makes them feel great. They're powerful. They're powerful. They're important. They control, visas or tax decisions, and you're just waiting. And so it's not always a good organisation. Isn't just about the people who work there. Okay, on the bad list. So that's on the bad list: lack of transparency, lack of instructions, unfairness, blaming others, skipping performance reviews, too much control, people don't know what to do, no motivation, disorganisation, frustrated employees, disappointment, negative atmosphere, communication issue, incorrectly selected people, customers, clients, are treated badly. Okay, good, thank you. You can sit down. Round of applause for Eva, please. Okay, so before we go on, I want to click. Oops. I have a technical problem here. Excuse me. Oh, I see. What's happened? Yeah, okay. First of all, so the main thing we're doing today is about organisations. These are the people who left feedback and commented on the Facebook group. Thank you. Is there anyone whose name is not here? Okay. Okay. I want this group to function in class and out of class, so I'm not going to put the names of people who don't contribute up yet. Okay, but I appreciate the people who do contribute. Thank you. The things we asked for feedback on. Does anyone remember the things we asked for? I asked for feedback on. Well, what were the topics? There were two things I asked for feedback on.
About the video on the test ad.
The video was an appraisal, right?
Appraisal, yes, case appraisal.
And whether it was a good, and I asked you to evaluate the appraisal, and what was the other one about?
How to manage people.
How to manage people, exactly. Someone, and I'm not going to make it individual, but someone wrote that it was wrong to think in terms of good and bad managers, and this was much too kind of subjective. Someone else wrote that the management, how to manage video was like a Catholic priest, which I thought was a bit weird. Has everyone seen this new movie? Have you heard there's a controversial movie in Poland?
Yeah.
Okay. And everyone commented that. Does anyone want to share their comments? Let's start with Keith's appraisal. Does anyone want to share their observations about David Brent, the manager, and Big Keith, the employee? Does anyone remember what they wrote?
I wrote about lack of communication and lack of no willingness to do this right from both sides.
Yes. I mean, several people, everyone commented it was very negative. I think in the real world, that situation could only exist in a terrible organisation, because ultimately, if a bad thing goes on in an organisation or in a room, it's the fault of the person in charge. Earlier, I think Mateusz talked about hierarchy, and a bad manager blames his or her employees, but ultimately the manager decides who his or her employees are. That if someone's not doing their job properly, they should change or not behaving properly in a meeting, the manager should give feedback, change the way the person behaves, and if they don't change, end their employment, in the long run, it's totally unacceptable as a manager to accept unacceptable behaviour. And David Brent is a terrible manager, but the reason he's terrible is because he's not doing anything to change unacceptable behaviours. So, Keith didn't know that he was meant to fill in the form. David Brent hadn't checked before the meeting that he hadn't filled in the form. He didn't give him feedback about his behaviour. So, I think that you can, and ultimately, if an action is pointless, an activity is pointless, you shouldn't carry on. And clearly, that was a pointless activity. So that's Keith's appraisal. So there's a saying in Polish, I think, that a fish rots from the head down. And if things are bad, always ask who's in charge. If you're in a shop and someone's treating you badly, you can always ask who's in charge. And recently I was badly treated by Santander. Have you heard of Santander Bank? They're a big Spanish bank. I complained, and I then complained about the complaints process, because I wanted to give them feedback, and they wouldn't let me give feedback. They'd only let me complain, and I didn't want to complain. I wanted to give feedback, and so I complained about that, and they gave me £125 compensation. They didn't change their, but I escalated. I said I wanted to speak to the person in charge, and the person I was speaking to said, I don't know if I can do that. And so I said, well, give me their name. And he said, I don't know. He's called Phil. I said, well, what's Phil's second name? I can't give you Phil's second name. Phil won't let me give you his second name. I can give you his employee number. And so, well, I want to speak to Phil's boss. And Phil's boss was called Peter, and Peter wouldn't give me his name either. But having escalated it, I don't know, probably you have great social lives, and on my Saturday nights I'm just complaining with Santander customer support, but I ended up, I just had it on Skype, so I wasn't really paying, I was doing something else. But if things are bad, always ask who's in charge, and if it's ultimately that's the question of responsibility. But now coming back to the second video, the Mark Hossman video about everything you heard about management is wrong. Can anyone remember their main? Some people were quite negative about that, other people were very positive about that. And again, there isn't the right way. There's more than one way to manage an organisation, but can anyone give me some memory of their feedback about that talk about management?
He told us not to become friends with the team, but only to be friendly. It not means to become close friends. He also told that... And
do you agree with that?
Yes.
Anyone else? Anyone else agree or disagree with Karina? Can a manager be friends with their employees?
I can disagree.
You can disagree, okay.
I think it is really hard to keep the boundaries between employees and employer. Of course you can be, let's say, communicative more, or just, open-minded with the people, but if you pass some boundaries with the employees, then it is starting to have some, situation when they are using your, they're treating you as a friend, so okay, I can be late, okay, I just send an SMS like I'm not here today in work, sorry, and that's it. And in my opinion, it's impossible.
Yeah, so it's, I also got...
You're agreeing with each other, in fact. And also, a friendship relationship tends to have some kind of equality, and a manager-employee team member relationship with some kind of power, and it's hard to. And I think someone else talked in the list here. We talked about treating people fairly somewhere, or and unfairness, and if you're friends, it's hard to be friends with everyone, right? It just like logically, I mean, or rather, if you're friends with everyone, it kind of changes the meaning of the word friendship. It goes beyond what we normally. I like it. I could say I'm a friendly person, but it's hard for me to say I'm friends with you guys. And nothing personal, but you know, if that's what I think, I'm kind of delusional, right? It's it's kind of not realistic. So one thing Mark Horstman said was be friendly, but you can't really be friends with your employees. So thanks, Karina. Anyone else got any memories from the Mark Horstman management?
Also, Mark said that young people should respect their boss, because nowadays young people think that to be honest with the employer, it's to say all strictly and not to choose the right word for this.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be honest with your boss, but you should respect him
Mm-hmm.
firstly.
Yes, I have to say I don't remember exactly what. Does anyone know what Dana's talking
Was
about?
at the end of the video.
He said about honesty, that you should be honest, but not too much, because when you say your boss what you think about him, it's not really.
He said, for example, that you want to say that you are an idiot,
Yeah,
but it isn't appropriate.
Yes. So I see. Yeah, I mean, I say common sense, right? It's kind of obvious. Like everyone knows that you can't share everything. But I think people should respect.
Yeah, but he told that if you think that you can tell your boss a list of things that you don't like about, then you are an idiot. So I don't think in this kind of video you should call your audience, you know, because it was like, why could he said exactly that if your boss asks you what's wrong and you have a list, then you're an idiot. Why can't you have a list? Everyone has a list of things because those things appear in time, with time. So, you know, I didn't understand that really.
Okay, I will. Thank you. I will come back to that, and I will figure out what I think he means, because it's a while since I watched it, I have to admit, and certainly I would say neither an employee should tell his boss he thinks they're an idiot, or a boss should tell an employee he thinks he or she's an idiot. It's disrespectful. But they say criticize the behaviour, not the person. So suppose you're late, I don't say you're stupid for being. You weren't late, but suppose you were late. I don't say you're stupid because you're late. I say, by arriving late, you disrupted. Then you link feedback to behaviours, because you can change behaviour, you can't change people. But I will come back to that. When I share these different perspectives on management, it doesn't mean that I agree with all of them. The most important thing that I think I took away from the Mark Horstman talk is that a good manager should get to know the people who report to him or her well, and he gives this example that if you don't know the names of the children of the people who report to you, then you shouldn't be their manager. And I did this at a conference. I asked this question at a conference I was speaking at in Gdansk, and it caused quite a lot of feedback. Because I asked how many people were managers in the audience, and then asked them if they.
In these times, asking your employers about, their family situation might be somehow politically incorrect, because, it's like sometimes you shouldn't ask this kind of questions.
I think that's an interesting debate. I mean, I think good communication, it depends, asking an employee, I would say it's fine to know about someone's background. You shouldn't make it centre stage, but if they're going through a divorce, or they've got a disabled child, or their father's sick, or someone important in their life is having some major life event, positive or negative, I think it makes it, happier. It makes it easier to manage that person. They say, can I leave early because, it's my girlfriend's graduation or whatever. Then it's, if you didn't know they had a girlfriend, that's quite, I don't know, for me it's kind of normal, provided you don't make it inappropriate, right? I don't know, it's...
Yeah, but sometimes questions like this are interpreted like, asking someone what's his family status, then you think, oh, maybe this woman will have a child and will leave for, maternity leave. And in the States, I think now it's rather in this direction that this issue should not be
Okay, I guess in some cultures maybe there's a human resources legal thing, but I still stand. I think what I would recommend for you is if you're managing people, get to know them, and if you're managing so many people, it also gives a sense of what's the limit of the number of people who can report to you directly. Because if you're going to have 20-30-minute one-on-ones with more than 10 people, that's going to be too much of your time. Okay, so thank you for so the big question: how do you organise other people so they work well and get things done properly? So one of the questions is how to do this. Obviously, in like a 2 45-minute workshop, I can't answer this, but one of the questions here is how. It's like, how do you do it? It's like it's a matter of skill, technique. These are things you can learn. The second thing is you, okay? And Matthias, you referred to hierarchy. I referred back to like in the David Brent Big Keith appraisal thing. Like David Brent is the manager, he's in charge. So this is about responsibility. It's like who is responsible. Like if you're looking at a badly managed or a well-managed organisation, it's always like who is the person taking responsibility, and it's a big problem in some NGOs or voluntary movements if you don't have a clear boss or a leader, because if things start going wrong, you don't know who's in charge. If someone behaves badly, whether it's being unreliable or dishonest or sexist or whatever, it's like who's the person who kicks that person out and says that was totally unacceptable, if you do that again you're out. There has to be the person responsible. Then organise. We're talking about an organisation, which means it's a set of processes to do things, and someone gave the feedback about Keith's appraisal or the Mark Hosman video that it was too much about the organisation and not about the individuals. But an organisation is about the organisation. If you choose to, you can't have, if it's just about an individual's objectives, it's no longer an organisation. If an organisation is people getting together to do something, and it's the thing that they're together to do, the purpose of the organisation is more than just the individuals. Other people, okay, is different. I will do time management, which is an individual thing, and I think Matthias, you mentioned time management as a feature of a good organisation. Can I help you?
Yeah, I need a tissue.
A tissue? I can help you with that, because I have a cold, and so I carry tissues.
Thank you.
What's the difference between organising yourself and organising other people?
You should know all about other people's schedule also.
Okay, which is easier, to organise yourself or to organise other people?
It depends on people, because
Sorry, it depends on the person, yeah?
Yes.
Does anyone agree with Dana? The question, is it easier to organise yourself or other people, depends on the person?
Yes.
This is true because some people easily, distribute tasks, but have a problem to their own job, I mean, which is still their job. But if you want to organize people, other people well, first you should be a good example of that. I mean, that's the basis, but it's not often the case.
I agree, and I think it is connected between, because if you can organize your work, you can organize also other people's work.
Okay, I would say it's a lot harder to organise other people than to organise yourself. And for one, communication. Like if it's just yourself, how hard is it to communicate with yourself? Do you think?
Okay, you should do something today and tomorrow.
No, I think I would say it's kind of obvious. Like issues like communication are really much easier when you're by yourself. If you're trying to communicate, if you can't communicate with yourself about what you're doing, like that's a really weird. I'd say you've got bigger problems than normal. Now there's a whole mass of issues to do, like we mentioned in the good organisations, communication. Okay, it's just a very simple thing, but even communication, setting purposes, there's a whole range of things which, like, once you start thinking about trying to manage, get things done, getting things done by other people raises a whole range of issues which you don't have if it's just yourself. So I'd say it's like the set of things you have to be good at to do something yourself is one. The set of things you have to be good at to get other people to do things doesn't leave out the set of things that you have to be good at yourself. It's kind of it's an extra area. Okay, so they work well. What does it mean to work well?
It means to work according to the standards.
Okay, so it needs to work. So the standards have to be defined. Okay, like when we're talking about the good and bad organisation here, we didn't mention standards, I don't think. But that's one thing. What else might it mean to work well?
To achieve results, is it company
Yeah,
expected?
to achieve expected results, exactly. And but the results may well be defined in terms of a standard. A great reference point is a McDonald's. I have no idea how long it takes McDonald's to make a Big Mac, but I bet they know. You know, I'm sure they know how many seconds it takes to make a Big Mac or do the chips or whatever. Like it's a set of standards, and so to work well needs to be defined. And if you stay in a hotel or a hostel, you can often see like the state of, you walk into a well-prepared room and it's meta standard, right? There's, you know, the bed is made, the coffee machine has been checked, there's a whole set of things that are done. So standards have to be defined and get things done. It's a, you know, you're aiming to a particular state. Again, getting things done. A hotel or a McDonald's are quite simple organisations, and they're not that simple, but you can say there's a series of activities that have to take place in order to get the room ready or to check someone in or whatever it is. So it's a series of actions. And properly, what does properly mean, do you think? Is it the same as work well?
Standards.
Standards, yeah. It also might mean values, right? It also might be, like, there might be more than one way of getting things done. And, you know, maybe during a war or something like that, you might cut corners or drop standards, but it's also like properly might mean done in a way in line with your values. And you know, you meet business people, or you may meet business people who are very rich and very successful, but you know that the way they got their money wasn't proper, right? It's not in line with your values, so it's not necessarily the right way to do things. Okay, so we've done this. I think we'll have a break now. It's the time is 10:37, and we finish at 11:30, right? Okay, we've got
11:15.
11:15.
Yes.
I got this wrong last week, right? So we've only got like another. Okay, we're gonna have a 4-minute break. Okay, quick break. Okay.
Okay.
Czy mogę Was zaakceptować na tej grupie, bo wysłałam już chyba drugi raz zaproszenie i nie mogę się tam dostać.
Oczywiście, ale kiedy wysłałeś?
Wcześniej jakoś w piątek, a teraz to są jakieś, nie wiem, przed chwilą. Bo wyświetlają mi się posty, a nie jestem w grupie, nie wiem dlaczego. To tak
na
może
grupę
być?
albo na page?
Bo widzi Pan, mam zdjęcia,
Mhm.
ale jakby jak chcę wejść tam,
Dobra, to jest.
to nie mam, to musimy...
A idziemy na członkowstwo.
No właśnie nie wiem czemu.
Ale nie jesteś tam, tak? Skąd?
No nie jest tam właśnie...
A skąd wiesz? Bo ja musiałbym logować.
A nie, teraz już jestem. Chwila, to wysyłam.
Ja to zrobiłam ostatnio na Facebook.
Bo teraz wysłałam, a może mi się coś zacięło po prostu.
Entrepreneurship. Znaczy sami będziemy mieli problem, czy jest page i jest group. Ale sprawdzę.
Tak, dobrze, wszystko jest okej. To chyba mi się coś zacięło.
Bo jeśli ja kliknę tutaj 6 new members, membership i find a member i ty
Alicja.
jesteś
Dobra.
od 24
No
to
to nie
było,
wiem, co się dzieje.
ale jesteś.
Dobrze, dziękuję. Dobra, jest dobrze. Nikola.
Ale woda jest tu. Jest tu na trzecim piętrze.
Nie znajdę багато йоду.
Nie chcę kosteczki brać, to nie widać. Mówię tam o cenie, żeby tam
Żelki? No ci badane. No, że się wie,
nie, jak na przykład nie nasz. Chcecie do niej pochować. Ja już sobie
wiem, no prawie to jest. Bardziej wkus produktu nie przyjmować.
najpierw ciebie, a ja ci to
Podpiszę tylko.
Можна настільки швидше. Дивись під швейцарською шоколадом. Ой, і сріб. Коротше, Валя повідавала мені. Я кажу, куди ви це віддаєте? І їм завтра.
No, tak zabywać robię, to nie wiem tego. Nie.
Udało się, działo.
Dziękuję.
Zostałeś liderem.
Should I put it
Yes, you need to send
here or?
No, here.
Okay.
Ale jest używasz to.
It's like a game when you have a tower and then take away one part.
It's going to be part of our activity is figuring out
Ah, okay.
So I won't explain that, because otherwise it won't be fair.
Wszyscy pisaliśmy rozciąganie.
So this is the organization. Well structured.
We'll see. It's going to be a national exercise. No, we use this.
It's good.
It's good, yeah, thank you. Okay, everyone ready? Okay, so time for a bit of activation. Stand up, please. Icebreaker time. Find someone you don't know very well in the group. Find someone you don't know very well, not your best friend. And wait, I was going to ask you a business question. And tell them what the most interesting thing you've learned either this morning or in the last week was, and we've got 3 minutes starting now. Okay? The question? Go.
What was the question?
What's the most interesting you think you learned either during the morning class or so far or during the last week? Okay?
Hey.
The most interesting thing I learned this week after meetings.
I should wake up early because otherwise Cyprian. I should like and also but still I shouldn't rely on this transportation because even though I left at 7:08, I still half day 7:08. Just 7:08. Exactly. 7:08. And I still find out it's not early enough to leave the house to be on time at 8 a.m. Eventually I was, but it was a struggle. Hi, how are you? Neither I. So what's the most interesting thing you recently?
I had to make decisions that write my paragraphs. But I
Rice and noodles.
yeah.
So I've learned today that I should have left home yes. Because I really want to say at least yes. Yes, I will be supposed to have 7, and then I have like 10 minutes so I think I should be leaving exactly at 7 to be on time at 8.
I should people a video.
was terrible.
I should rewatch it.
I did.
It's like
And I had to wait for it to appear.
I definitely learned that.
And it was fun because I woke up at 6.
Yeah, that's for sure. That
I've done a lot
And
of
we
it.
met half to the way to the toilet.
Being a professional.
And I was like,
Okay,
oh,
guys.
that's
Okay,
terrible.
go back to your seats,
Yes,
please.
and then and he entered the bathroom without
Nice to meet
telling
you.
anything. Like,
Um,
if I'm okay, if he's fine. And I was like,
Oh wait.
I was like, whatever.
but by the way,
You know what?
last week I organised one of the events I'm involved in the organisation of is called Krakow Enterprise Mondays, and 3 people. I don't think anyone here came to Enterprise Mondays. You did. Sorry, apologies. Okay, so can you describe what happens at Enterprise Mondays in one minute?
I was a bit scared of this.
Okay, that's the wrong thing. That's the wrong answer. What you meant to say is it was great.
Can you listen? But it was really very interesting.
That's the correct answer.
Yes, because I met new people, and because of your exercises like this, icebreaker exercises, you can easily talk to another person that you don't know because of this icebreaker. And it taught me to not to be afraid of other people and to talk to others. What is more, there were 3 speakers, yes, and each speaker has its own kind of business, and these businesses were very different, and each of speakers talked about it from different perspectives. And the most interesting for me was about application of Wanda. I didn't remember his name. The speaker is from America. She now lives in Poland and organized an application which will help you to travel easily, not to find places like restaurants, cafes, museums in the Google or Instagram, but it will be in one application. And she describes the application, how to manage your workers, like any other speakers. So it was interesting to listen to other people who know how to manage their work and their organization. And we had also
Okay, I think
experience to talk after the interview.
Yeah. Thank you. So a round of applause for Karina. Thank you. During Enterprise Mondays, there were also 3 people from the other group, and we were just chatting afterwards about the idea of having some kind of social event, okay, for the 2 groups, okay? And that would probably be out in an evening, sometime somewhere in town. If that happened, are you guys interested in joining something like that? Yeah. I'll see you there. Okay, no, because we'll do it on the group probably in 2 or 3 weeks. It would probably be a one-off experiment, but this whole course is an experiment, so you can be part of the experiment. The next Enterprise Mondays will be on the 5th of November in Club Buda, or Buda Club, which is in the Uniwersytet Rolniczy, so it's in the Old Town area. 5th, yeah. I'll post details. I think I posted details already, but if I didn't, I'll post details in the Facebook group. Does anyone know what this is?
Yes.
Okay, in a moment we'll be playing it as a management exercise. Okay, so there isn't time for me to go through this in great detail, but this was my list. I just sat down in preparation for this. People know what's expected of them. People know what is expected of them. People do what is expected of them. Supervision, really important. It's not enough to know what you're meant to do, it's someone has to check that you actually do it. People know what to do if things go wrong or something changes. A good organisation has to be flexible and deal with a crisis or things going wrong. I had some fun with PowerPoint. Okay, people are happy, well trained, don't often quit. People are treated with respect, they realise their potential, and are well paid. Question, that's a question. Maybe in a good organisation people are well paid. Think about it. Things are done well at high quality, it's efficient. Super important question, are you doing it as well as it can be done? Which means comparing it with other organisations. There was a time when Toyota was making 3 or 4 times as many cars per employee as General Motors. 3 or 4 times better. Hard to say that General Motors was working well if Toyota could make 3 or 4 times as many cars per person. There's no waste, little waste. Waste is the same as inefficient. No negative environmental impact. This is not like a textbook. I'll post this presentation on the SlideShare like before so you can come back. This is my list. It's easy to find out what's going on. That transparency question someone said. Everything is in its place. It's tidy, it's peaceful. You know, a chaotic organisation is probably not a great one. It's calm and it's orderly. Everything happens as it should, i.e. standards. The organisation achieves its goals. The organisation achieves its goals. And then it's like, what are the goals? Like, that's a question of leadership. Maybe the goals aren't to make money. Maybe it isn't to do with business. But if you don't have someone defining the goals, it's hard to say it's successful. How do we get there? Okay, so this is, before we play the game, obviously I can't teach you how to organise things well so everyone does their job properly in 2 45-minute sessions. Does anyone know what OKRs are or MBOs are? Google manages its business on OKRs, which are objectives and key results. That's what Sergey Brin and Larry Page came up with this idea that every single process has to have objectives and key results. Google it. MBO stands for management by objectives. The way you manage people is you sit down with them in groups and individuals who set the objectives and you manage to the objectives. If you don't have objectives, you can't manage for sure. So Google has objectives and key results. Processes, the way we do things. Like, think about bringing a new person into an organisation. You have to explain how the organisation works. And like, you can't, so if you can't define that, it's just chaos. A new person arrives in your shop, your restaurant, your university. I've been discovering how this university works. Things like, I had to ask where to get the pens. I had to find out who to give technical support for the projector and stuff like that. But the way things work is part of organisation. If you can't define it, you can't have the processes, you can't... Okay, why is it important to have processes?
I mean, to keep the work cycle stable.
Okay, it's a big question. Think about why it's... that'll be your homework. Think about why processes are important.
It's like the same of like procedures?
Procedures, like a process, like suppose you have, you join an organisation and they give you an ID card, like the process of giving that person an ID card, which lets them into the building, is a pretty important process. If it's not defined, you have to ask someone. Like, a process is like the way we issue ID card. It's very often they're boring and important. Who has the key? Who unlocks in the morning? How do we do a job advert? You know, what's the stopgate in our email? You know, if you don't have a process, everything's chaotic, and you don't get a... You know, if you work for Volkswagen, which is a German company, I imagine they have a process for deciding what the bottom of your email looks like. I'm sure they do. And if you don't have that, then it gets chaotic and you don't have a sense of order. Monitoring and hierarchy. It's really nasty, but it's all very well to have the way you do things. Suppose we have a company culture that we don't have sexist calendars in our offices, which I think is a great idea. Okay? What happens if someone does? Okay? like it's all very well to have a process, but how do you monitor and enforce it? Someone talked, Dana, you talked about control. It's all very well not to have control, but if people behave badly and you don't have control, then what, right?
Also then about this atmosphere.
What?
About atmosphere.
Okay, but like if you have people behaving badly and you don't control them, then the atmosphere is worse than if you...
I mean, you should control people, and only you, like a boss, should control people, all staff in your corporation or whatever. But I mean that people should feel like that they have all their own decisions, that they are working.
Yeah, autonomy is super important. I'll post a TED talk by Dan Pink about motivation without money, but like people need to have a sense of autonomy in how they get to their goals, but you still have to have a balance between autonomy and control. It's not like, as you say in Polish, wolna Amerykanka, which is quite like a very sort of a free America, which is quite unfair because America has a lot of processes and controls, in fact. But it's like it's a balance between control and you need hierarchy. Record keeping. If you don't keep records, and it's super boring, this idea, a well-organized organization knows where you keep the information. Innovation, you have to be capable of changing. A lot of people hate, like people who love processes, quite often hate innovation, because then you have to change your process. So you need a process to change your processes. Really exciting. Recruitment, training and feedback. Getting the right people into, there's a famous business author called Jim Collins who wrote a book called From Good to Great. And he has the image of the bus. You have to make a great organisation. You have to get the right people on the bus, and the wrong people off the bus. So you have to be good at hiring and good at firing. You know, if you've got someone who's toxic, bad, you have to get them out. And so, how do you get people on board? So I will post this. I'll certainly have a special class on recruitment and training and feedback. I'm not sure we'll have a class on record keeping, but I will post this entire presentation on the SlideShare and share a link to it. Okay, now who has played? So that's all I'm going to have. We're going to have an exercise now, which is in fact an exercise in management and communication. It's not just a game. So who has played Jenga before? Okay, who has never played Jenga? Karina. Okay, so Karina and Dana and Ilona, you're going to be playing Jenga, and the people who've played, so you're actually going to have to play this game, and everyone else is going to have to teach you how to play, okay? So this is the challenge, okay? So the people who are, and this is a management challenge, how do you get people who don't know what to do what we want to do? And I think we'll divide the room into 2 teams, and I want an equal number of people, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the dividing line is here, okay? Between, wait for it, Nicola, no, that's last week's sheet. Between Nicola and Patricia and Nicola, right? So Patricia, you're on this side, and okay, so okay, so you're saying goodbye. That's sad. So what you're going to do is, okay, what do you want your team name to be? Choose a name. Maybe Vietnam. Can you be Vietnam?
Yeah, okay.
You're Vietnam. Okay, what team do you want? You don't have to be a country. What's your team identity? It can be anything.
Doctor.
What? No, they have to choose.
Medicine.
Medicine. Okay, the doctors. Okay, we've got Vietnam against the doctors. Okay. Okay, and Karina. Okay, so the idea is for Vietnam to beat the doctors or the doctors to beat Vietnam, but the challenge is that only Karina and Pavlo are allowed to touch the tower on behalf of the Vietnam team, and only Ilona is allowed to touch the tower on the part of the doctors team. Okay, so you have to explain. Can you explain to her how to play? Okay, and explain to Pavlo, and you've got like 3 minutes to explain the rules of Jenga to your representatives, what they have to do.
Or you can sit on it. Yeah, okay, thanks. You have to say it in front of the public. No, you have to say.
I'm not sure that I know this game.
Okay, so maybe you one by one.
So basically the players take it in turns to pull out the blocks. So that, and if the tower collapses, that team loses. Okay, that's the most important thing. And you have to pull one at a time. So for example, you touch it, that one's stuck, you find one that's loose, and then you have to place it on top.
Can I have an idea?
Yes?
But it would be like an extra one, because one time I had this kind of exercise, but we put something on our eyes, and the team had to like lead this person properly to not
there isn't time. It's a good idea. Maybe next time or another time. But this time it's I'll make it easy because we only have like 5 minutes for the day. Okay. So but the so carry on. The other rule is it's not allowed to be from the top 2 layers. So you have to start from number 3 down. You can't go on this layer and you can't go on this here. Okay. So anything down here, and the other rule is only one hand. Okay. So you're not allowed to do that and then pull it out. Okay. It's just one hand. Okay.
And once you add one block, is it possible to resign and touch another? Or is
no,
it once you...
No, you can touch it to feel if it's loose, and if it's not loose, you can touch
another one.
But when you build on top, you have to build. So like right now, I'm finding a loose one. This one's quite loose. When you build on top, you have to build next to the other ones. So for example, if I put this one on, it has to go here. You can't put, and you can't put it like this or something like this. You have to build evenly along the top. Okay, guys, so let's play Vietnam. Vietnam, can you give a round of applause to the doctors as they come to the table? Particularly Ilona and
is it possible to put them like on the opposite side, not next to each other?
No. When you, I will give.
Okay.
Okay, so send. Okay, and the doctors, give a round of applause to Vietnam, please. Okay, and please send your representatives up to play. So. Karina and Pablo, and you're allowed to tell them what to do. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let's have a coin. Okay. So. Okay. So. Eagle, Polish eagle or the number? What do you want? Eagle. It is the number. Okay, so the Vietnam are going first, okay? So. And you have to be quite quick because otherwise we're going to run out of time. Okay, and then you have to build a cross. You see here? It has to be a cross like this. Like this. Okay, so first move successful. If it's...
Be confident. Guys, you have to be quite focused on this. Think about the processes. Number one, we had to teach them what the game was. We had to teach them the rules.
Bo i ten z drugiej strony, co Karina wciągnęła.
Yeah, maybe this one.
It's not so hard to begin with.
Yeah.
Lecisz, nie?
Nie, ale to...
Oh.
Aha, bo ja w ogóle
Very good. Okay, that's good.
Wow.
That's
Paula,
okay.
your turn. O nie, ale jest...
teraz nie ma opcje.
No, przetrobię.
Hey, maybe from
Z dołu.
from the bottom.
Oh.
Good. So I think both teams are doing quite well in terms of motivation. They're supporting their representative. But I don't know if you
Maybe the opposite is one.
are you giving enough feedback and coaching?
Yeah, maybe this
Right.
one would make sense. But be careful. Okay.
Nie dmuchajcie.
To nie jest aż taki delikatny.
Yes.
Już jest.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh!
Oh, very nice. Very well. Also, you did use two hands when you put it on top, but you are a beginner, and we're being quite. I'm the judge, and I'm letting you do this. So no respect, Karin.
Wow. Karina zgrabnie.
Aren't Karina and Pavel on the same side?
Yes.
So shouldn't it be?
A my teraz nie my.
Teraz Paweł nie.
Because you're on the same. Jesteś na tej samej stronie.
Słuchaj, teraz spróbuj środkowy któryś. Masz na przykład tutaj tak wystaje z drugiej strony. Wiesz, że możesz go palcem
nie,
can push it.
Z tej strony
Tak.
do środka.
Ej, otwórzmy tak.
Nie, a ten niżej.
As we're doing this exercise, think about, how important it is to get someone who's not good to being competent. Like this is a key. Obviously, this isn't a business, unless there's a money to be made by Jenga skills. I forgot there is the 5-second rule that the tower has to stand for 5 seconds after you put the brick on. The wind's
Można zmieniać.
Wolno zmienić. I'm the judge. You can give up and you can change to another brick if you want.
Może ten pierwszy jednak. Znaczy ten, co wyciągałeś już może.
A jakby tam właśnie tam z samego dołu?
Tak, to jak pod tym jest jeszcze woda. To też nie tak.
Ja ze środka wyciągam.
Nie.
Spróbuj niektóre nie z tej konstrukcji, tylko ze środka. Jak wciśniesz tam w środek, to na przykład na dole, no.
Może prawda, same niżej popróbuj. Посередине. Tak.
Tak.
Claro. Sí. Vale. Claro que sí. Claro que sí, patrón, matar. Vamos a la playa. Ah, sí, ir de compras. Te quiero. Tocar la guitarra. Motivation from them.
Wow!
Okay. Congratulations to the doctors. That were in. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You won the first ever game of Jenga.
Super.
Okay. And so if we have a class party, we will play Jenga during the party. Okay, guys. So the time is 11:10. So just let's just sum up what management lessons and processes? Suppose we're designing a process to manage the process of teaching people how to play Jenga. What's the first step? So we've got people who never played before. What's the first thing we have to do?
Explain rules.
Explain the rules. Yeah. Okay. So that's number one. The rules, like the objectives. What's the second thing?
First, we have to explain the rules to ourselves because everyone knows other.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe establish whether we know the rules, and then very good. Like, do we know the rules? And there's a great resource called the internet, which you can go to if you don't know the rules. So one is check you know the rules, and we have common rules. Second, then explain the rules. Then what do we have to do?
Support. Yeah.
Support? Okay, but there's more than support, right? Is it? I'm like, if it's enough to know, suppose it's brain surgery, right? You wouldn't want someone to be doing brain surgery on you.
To train them.
Training,
Practice.
yeah, training.
Even practice. more.
Practice. Okay, you didn't have, so like obviously this is a classroom exercise. This isn't like the real world. If we were out in the real world of professional Jenga playing, we would be a bit different. So what sort of skills do you think you need to play Jenga well?
Precision.
Precision,
Patience.
patience. What else?
Decision making.
Decision making. Yeah, decision making process. So analysis, right? Analysis. What else?
A bit of physics knowledge.
Physics. Yeah. Good at gravity, right? Good understanding of balance and gravity. Okay, what else? From the start, agreeing we know the rules, explaining the rules, maybe like some things about technique. So maybe advice. So it's not just what the rules are, but it's how to do it, how to play, and then during the game, Donna mentioned support. Anything else apart from support? Help. Yeah. So help and feed. Advice, yeah, help. So like coaching and advice is also like super important, and I think that there's a limited number of lessons to learn from playing Jenga, but I hope you learned some of them. Okay, so are there any questions from today's class? Okay, your homework I will send out by email as usual, but it will be, amongst other things, questions to ask a CEO about how he or she runs his or her business. So like, you will get to meet CEOs during this, but I want you each to write down at least one question that you'd like to ask the CEO of a company if you get to meet them in class. So I want you to ask questions on the Facebook group so other people can comment. Okay? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.